Channel here over at SubScribestar. So what is the future of Hollywood 2025 and beyond? Well, it's going to get worse if you haven't been paying attention. Hollywood has not been doing too well. Actually, this is a great thumbnail. Yeah, it's a website. You should make thumbnails like that. Hollywood, the mainstream media, and pop culture in general is in a woke death spiral, and that's not going to change. So the summary is everything in the mainstream will continue to deteriorate because this is their religion. There are a lot of factors that people in the industry are woke. They're not just doing this because of social media pressure, but there is also the social media toxic left-wing infrastructure that supports far left-wing globalist cancer that nobody watches. They say they love it, but the numbers say that they're not watching, so there's some disconnect, or perhaps the left-wing audience, I know this is going to be shocking, is just not being honest when they say they love these far left-wing themes, because the movies are losing an insane amount of money. And the thing with the woke backlash is once people put on the sunglasses from They Live, timeless classic, they start to see this propaganda more and more, so they become hypersensitive to it, myself included, to the point where even things from decades ago that would have been okay are now, unfortunately, unwatchable. For example, Raiders of the Lost Ark, a beautifully shot film from 1981. The desert cinematography was excellent. If it came out today, I wouldn't watch it simply because it has the Germans as the bad guys. And we've just had too much of this kind of blonde man bad, this white man bad theme. And now I have zero tolerance for it, even though the technical aspects of the movie are absolutely top notch. It's a stellar movie. I would rather watch Temple of Doom, which was, not even half the movie the first one was, but it was kind of cartoonishly silly, but it was a fun movie because at least it didn't have that toxic trope of European man bad, and I'm sure I would see that in a lot of movies. I did see some of this. All it takes is one anti-white racist comment, and it's like just a hair trigger for a lot of us, and I'm not going to watch the movie. Because why would we watch the movie? That's the thing. It's like you're paying for these movies, and it's also your time. And the left wing seems to think like, oh, just get over it. Like, why exactly would we? Why would we get over it? And like I said, the thing is, there's no shortage of alternative entertainment. Books, for example. And like I said, I can look back at movies in the past and see the wokeism in them. And actually some LG sent me some good comics, vegan as well. Thanks for that, graphic novels. And I can look back and I can see the wokeism in there. And he sent me this Batman versus Dracula last year, and I keep thinking about doing the review on it, but it's kind of a milquetoast review because it wasn't I'm going to say it wasn't such a fantastic story. It's like, yes, I realize somebody sent me the comic. It's very generous. I'm very grateful, but it was compared to nowadays, it's like Shakespeare, but for the time it was just like, yeah, it's an okay graphic novel. It's okay for the 80s. It did have a clever plot twist ending. Spoiler, I won't give it away. But it's just that it stands out because it wasn't as good as like The Dark Knight Rises, which actually LG sent me a second copy of that from 86, I think, which was fantastic. When people talk about gritty, and I guess they overuse. Where's my voice going? I guess because I'm whispering a little bit. They overuse that term because it's like midnight. Gritty a lot, and that Dark Knight Rises from '86 actually was gritty. That was a great thing. But the thing is, the Batman versus Dracula, it was just okay. But it's like there should be a ton of stories like that, and then you look at what they come out with now, you're like, oh, this is a precious commodity that I keep thinking about. Anyway, I can look back at movies in the past and I see the wokeism in there, and I just lost interest in them as well. And I represent a lot of people who are just done with Hollywood. We can finally see these people as just kind of the lizard people that they are. You realize that Hollywood is mostly globalist propaganda. It's rare that Lord of the Rings comes out 25 years ago. Instead, the future is Rings of Power. The other aspect of pop culture is the mainstream media. I mean, the news media. That's actually going to collapse faster than Hollywood because the audience is aging out of mainstream media and the way that it's presented with the monologue situation on the news. And, the sad thing someone was talking about with YouTube is that YouTube used to be YouTube. And then now you have CNN and Fox and MSNBC. So the mainstream media is using YouTube just as another source of media. And so YouTube has to pander to them. And it's like, obviously, it's not YouTube anymore. And honestly, YouTube would, if they could, they probably would force out all independent news, whether you're on the left or the right. I'm kind of getting that feeling from YouTube, where even like Paul Joseph Watson or maybe the Young Turks would be okay. The thing is, younger generations are into alternative media. News can be replaced by anybody with a cell phone and a website, and that's really all it takes to get started. The mainstream media is, now you probably have drones, and if you can drive to a location, you can film it. It's like, okay, well, you're the media now. Mainstream media is so biased that it's almost useless for news. It only tells you what the globalist narrative is. It doesn't tell you the truth, so it's going to continue to shrink rapidly. The 24 election coverage proved that. YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey took massive amounts of market share away from CNN and the rest of the mainstream media. It was way more than I suspected. All the news had to be was impartial, and that was a bridge too far. Sir, you ask the impossible. If the news was unbiased, we would have an entirely different country, but the reason they control the media is so that they can put out a narrative. Hollywood, big screen, and streaming. Okay, fair enough. We cannot replace that. Those require hundreds of millions of dollars just to make a movie, and the ads and the distribution, that kind of money, the alt community cannot make $100 million, which for Hollywood would be considered kind of a lower budget movie, but we don't have to. All we have to do is make a video or a live stream, and we start to capture the audience that would have gone to the mainstream. Small channels like mine get thousands of hours of watch time a year, and I don't even know how many it gets, and that's coming out of the mainstream market because there's only 24 hours in the day. People would rather listen to Dan Bongino than Rachel Maddow, and people want to watch the big screen and streaming. People like to be entertained. They like a big budget show. But the movies have to be good. They have to be worth the time, and they flat out don't make good movies anymore. All they make is globalist propaganda. And you know how I know it's a cult? Because in all the networks, all the shows, there's no fish swimming upstream. There's no movie that goes against the narrative. Not a single one is going in politically incorrect waters. Not one. Imagine a movie set in some European country where the natives gather together and overthrow their corrupt globalist governments and deport the invaders. If the Irish decided to fight for their freedom and take their country back, those movies don't get made, and they would actually be illegal in some European countries. But nobody in Hollywood considers such a thing. Doesn't that kind of strike you as odd that nobody makes a movie about anything real? The core of movies has to be about their hatred of European people. Make a movie about a scamming call center in India that ruins people's lives, and some hitman goes over there and gets revenge. Oh, wait, they set that in America, where the real estate prices and the cost of living would make such a call center impossible. And the bad guy in that movie isn't Indian. I guess he's some blonde, and I think all the bad people, of course, were blonde. Some Trump Jr. clone. Devin Stack covered that. I think it's a Beekeeper movie on his Odyssey and Rumble channels. Yeah, that's why Hollywood is just going to continue to collapse. They're asking the audience to suspend too many points of disbelief. You've got some story about a black girl is the protagonist. Okay, fine, we can work with that. But then she has to get around some evil or incompetent blonde people to fight some more evil blonde people, and something about Trump and capitalism, and there's some some trans lesbian dads in the background with, a child they bought. It's just too many points of disbelief. Female hero, black, super Mary Sue smart, goes on an adventure. If you stop there, I could write it and make it work. I would set it in a black environment. Detroit or Africa or wherever, and the pros and antagonists can all be black, and I can write that and make it a good story, but Hollywood can't write a good story because they hate European people and they fetishize black people. Because the good and bad people, if you make a story like that, you make them all the same race. That way it's kind of balanced and no one gets their feelings hurt. You can't make a white man bad movie if they're all of European people, good and bad, or if they're all just black. It's like that's a much easier movie. That's a more neutral movie to make. But Hollywood just can't do that. If they can't make propaganda, then they're not going to get out of bed. This is why they're in Hollywood. The money, yes, but this is their religion. So instead of setting it in Africa and one tribal girl has to go sneak around and do battle with another tribe to I don't know, get some widget to save her tribe, they make it about some evil blonde hunter who's getting rhinos for their horns to sell to other evil blonde men. It's like, are there evil blonde hunters? Yeah, for sure. But it's just that the magic of probability statistics and the per cap of flipping the coin, and every time it's coming up heads, because in reality it's local black hunters who sell to Chinese men, and that's ivory and rhino horns. They slaughter them with AKs, and they just take that parts, and they leave the animals to the scavengers. And that's the reality on the ground. And Hollywood just doesn't want to tell that story, which would sell, but they take the story and they just straw man in some blonde people as evil, and they take China out of the equation entirely, because otherwise they'd get blacklisted in China. You get the Dahomey tribe movie, which I forget the name of that movie, which took history, and it had the guy from Star Wars in it, the Finn, I forget his name. That guy turned out to be a total racist jackass, and they simply inverted the reality, because the real history is that the Dahomey were selling slaves, and the French and English had to stop them. If Hollywood told the true story, it would have been a huge hit. Just accept it, own the history, because everyone was selling slaves or having human sacrifices. Everyone, black, white, brown. The Europeans had witch trials. Everyone knows that, but so did the Africans, and not many people know that. And actually, oddly enough, they still have witch trials today, but it's kind of an excuse to get rid of political operatives. And if you think that's so barbaric and third world, it's like, yes, it is, but is Hillary Clinton and Putin any different? They don't have witch trials, but they use umbrellas with tetrodotoxin on a hypodermic tip, and they just find their mark in a crowd, and they hit them with the umbrella, and the guy's out. Anyway, so this Hollywood narrative now is so backed into a corner that they can just not make movies that connect to people. The propaganda is so heavy that even people who are not terminally online, like we are aware of it. And if you're listening to this on the alt platforms, you're probably pretty heavy online. Hollywood is fiction, usually, fair enough, but it has to connect to the human experience. Instead, this is the only movie that I might take a chance on. Not because I care about the story, but because they said the cinematography, the film work, sometimes kind of just the imagery of a movie. Like I was saying with Indiana Jones, where if you turn the volume off on Indiana Jones and you watch it, the images, and it's kind of moving in and of itself. It's just a moving artwork, and that's what this movie kind of sounds like. Says it's confusing, but sometimes movies like Dances with Wolves, when you watch that on a big screen, which I did in the theater, is just kind of an experience in itself. And that's the magic of big screens. Like, people want to go see movies. They want to go see movies, but there's nothing. And I'm looking around my area, and movie theaters in my area are closing down and converting to something else because there's just not enough traffic. And it's like, did the Wu flu have something to do with it? Yeah, but it's also that the movies are garbage. The movies in the past 15 years have not been very good, and in the past 5 to 10 years have been atrocious. And this is the 2024 losses. And I forgot that Indiana Jones, the Dial of Destiny, was 2023. You can go back there and check that out. That it cost $400 million to make, and it probably lost $400 million. Anyway, things have to connect to the real world, and we're getting this mirror image world where European people are bad and the non-Euros are good. It just doesn't sell because everyone knows that we're the good ones, the explorers, the heroes, inventors, innovators. We're the main players, and the rest of the world are kind of NPCs. And this isn't 2010, where a lot of these themes, movies would still sell in 2005 maybe. People are just done with anti-white propaganda, where even Indiana Jones Part 5 was a massive bomb because they brought back the Germans as the bad guys. And the audience knows that when Hollywood says Nazis, we know that you mean all European people. Or, okay, if Hollywood wants to deny that, that's the perception. Let's just keep it 100. Hollywood has a problem with their hatred. And it's going to continue, and things will just get worse and worse, which is great because there's no, like, once you kind of put on the They Live glasses, what is that phrase? It turns to ashes in your mouth. There's just nothing in Hollywood because it's like you're supporting a corrupt system. You're supporting like people vacation on islands off the coast of Florida type of thing. Just the worst people on earth. Like the whole, or even like you can't. Once you look at Disney and you really see Disney, you're not going to support anything by Disney because they're the ones who are behind a lot of this kind of stuff. And the funny thing about The Crow is they knew The Crow was going to bomb. I assume the people who made the movie didn't know that. But when they talked about The Crow, everyone who had seen the original knew that this was going to bomb because The Crow had a kind of a different fan connection. But that shows you how out of touch people at Hollywood were, where they go, "Oh, we're going to remake this movie for $50 million." And you go, you can remake a lot of movies, but The Crow is not going to be one that you can remake. The things that are like cult classics, where they have like Edward Scissorhands has a different kind of audience to it. I don't know. It's like the gothic kids of the 80s and 90s, or no, was it goth back then, or it's emo now or something? No, it's all kind of the same thing. And all you would have had to do was ask people in the movie scene about remaking The Crow, and they would have said, "That's insane. You're just burning money." And they went ahead and they did it anyway. And it's like, what happened? Oh, you lost $100 million. Well, I mean, they have the money to lose, and it's great to watch them lose the money. And they're going to continue to lose money. They're going to keep this up, and movie theaters will close, and so the infrastructure closes, and that makes recovery almost impossible. It's kind of the same thing with the comic book industry. When the stores close, they convert over to something else. You could, like, all this stuff, comics, movies, whatever, narratives, books, games, video games, board games, you could turn all this around if you wanted to. And that's the point I was trying to make, is that Amazon, Netflix, Warner Brothers, there's, a dozen main players in the streaming and dozens more in the big screen, and not one of them is going for anything politically incorrect. Not one single company, not one movie, not one makes a politically incorrect movie. Doesn't that strike you as odd? Like there's something more going on? It's like, well, yes, of course there's something more going on. Anyway, Merry Christmas. It is 34 minutes into Christmas, and I will see you guys on the next episode.